Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. I greet you with love and honor and blessings. And I hope that everyone is having a wonderful day. Thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm truly blessed and humbled by everything that has happened in the last several months as far as this channel is concerned, and with people who have subscribed to my channel. And I'm just humbled beyond belief. I'm just beyond words for me. Now, I'm bringing this subject up about racism because I've made comments in some of my videos, and it seems that people think that somehow I'm being racist by my choice of words. And I wish to clarify that. Now, I'll be 66 in about 2 months. And from my viewpoint, I always thought racism was stupid. I grew up in a Catholic family. I went to Catholic school, Most Holy Redeemer in Tampa, Florida. And then I graduated from Tampa Catholic in 1970. And racism was not an issue when we were in school. Racism was an issue with society, but not with the people that I went to school with. Here's my issue. If I grew up when the quote, the N word was still being used in the 50s. All right. I mean, if a black person showed up, then they were called the N word. Okay. It was common. It was acceptable amongst whites and other religions. I mean, not religions, but other ethnicities, other races, the Italians the Irish or whomever. Now, when I was growing up, there were jokes about all different types of races. And I say this from a historical point of view. My history of my life with what people in society called each other and what was normal to them. Not what was normal to me, but what was normal to them. Now, why is this really an issue? Well, because people are going bat crap cray cray over a usage of a word. Now, I have the utmost of respect for the African American people or the black community, or however. It's like you can't choose the right word. It's like somebody's going to find offense at whatever you say. Now, when I say I've got many black families who have been my friends for years, we've partied together. I would be the only white person with 10 different families, black families or African American families. And I mean no disrespect. I don't. I have the utmost of respect for these other races, religions, whatever. I honor everyone. The only way that I get ticked off or don't like someone is because of their personal nature, not their skin color. It has nothing to do with what nationality they may be, whether Italian or Cuban or Mexican or African American or black or whatever. Now, I want to say to some folks, y'all need to grow up. Because if you listen to my discussions about my feelings towards other races or nationalities or whatever, you would understand that I'm for them. And the last thing that I want to be is be racist in any way towards any other community or nationality or whatever. Now, it seems like it boils down to my choice of words. When I was growing up, they had two different water fountains. And one said whites only, and the other one said blacks. Some of them actually had the N word. Okay. A sign posted in a public, it was a J.M. Fields department store. Blacks only or whites only. Now, I got in trouble as a kid for drinking out of the wrong water fountain. I got slapped. I got almost beat up because I went to the black water fountain in the JM Field store because I didn't understand what white black was. I always went to black when I was like, well, but why can't I? No one, there were very few blacks in the store. Why would you have one for them? And so I guess I was always a contrarian and I would go drink out of that water fountain. Now, this was in the early 60s, okay, in Tampa, Florida. Now, we went, I say we, my generation, us baby boomers, we went through the issue of the riots, Martin Luther King, and all of that kind of thing. We lived through that. And people today who've never been through that and seen the riots and the killing and the beatings and everything like that. And I don't care who these people were. I was against it then. I'm against it now. And so people who wish to call me a racist because I use the word Negro instead of black or Black American or African American, in my lifetime, quote, the social designation for this particular group of people has changed 4 times. Okay. And it went from really racist to like, okay, they're blacks, now they're African American, this, they're what. So my vernacular, my speech pattern, the words that I use is 66 years of history. So if I refer to someone or the race of black folk, and I mean, see, I'm probably going to piss somebody off with this, and I mean this with the utmost of respect. Black population, African Americans, and I know folks of that ilk, well, wrong word, of that nationality who don't like to be called African Americans because they aren't from Africa. They're from here. They're Americans, you know, and they kind of take offense to the fact that we would call them African Americans, sort of like the native folk. The Native Americans are like, of course they're native. They were here before the white man came. If I'm going to be racist against a particular group of folk, I am more racist against the white population because of the dumb stuff they've done to all the other races, religions, and everybody else. If you want to call me a racist, I'm a racist against the white people. Whoa, what? Yeah. Well, Dave, aren't you white? Well, on the outside. But I got a lot of Native American blood in me. And I take offense when white people talk about them damn Indians. And if you think there is racism against the black community or the African American community or another race, I mean, when I was growing up, Chink was a Chinaman. And if you said, hey, you know, I got a friend who's a Wop, that meant they were of Italian descent. And the big joke in the old days was, what sound does spaghetti make when it hits the wall? Wop. And so everybody used to laugh at that. That was back in the 60s and maybe even into the early 70s. You know, a Spick was a Spaniard. And I mean, you know, these names were like common. Okay. And I even made a reference one evening out of a pure mistake. And I caught it, apologized on the spot. But I said, when I was growing up, we were still coming out of World War II. We were in the Korean War in 1952 when I was born. So I grew up in an era that was totally different. And so people who have never lived in that era, grew up in that era, think that some of us are racist or something because of some of our remarks. Like I'm going to say again, I have no issues with any race or religion except when those folk pick on me or want to call me out or something like that. Then I might say something, but I'm still not going to use a derogatory name because it's just not polite. I've been called an F and this and blah, 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 and that's okay. And it's like, you just don't understand. But when folks wish to call me a racist because of a particular word that I use, I say, you all need to grow up, because it's not that way at all. Many of us, we have had to adjust our vernacular 4 times in the last 60 years. Okay. And so if my mind remembers something and I speak about something, I promise you, I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm using vernacular that was used in history, in the history of this United States, the history of the South. And there are still a lot of KKK folks in down here in the South. They're quiet. They don't burn crosses on people's yards anymore, but they're very active. And I've spoken about this before, and I won't say any more about it. I'm just here to say that there are people who are very prejudiced, even to this day down here in the South. Now, are all Southerners like that? Absolutely not. But there's some old guard down here that they're KKK through and through. Now, it's not like it was in the old days, but they're very strict still in their protectionism of the white race. Okay, we can't have them mixed folk, you see, and I was fixing to use a word that is a vernacular of folks here in the South, and I was going to say I just stopped myself from saying it. It probably would have pissed some people off, and it has nothing to do with how I feel. It has to do with the words I'm using, and I'm using them as a colloquialism, as how some Southerners would speak. Okay. Now, why am I even on this subject? Why is it coming up? Well, because people, if they don't know who you are and you use a word or a phrase or something like that, and even if I try to use it in the proper context, people want to jump up and down and say, well, Dave used the word Negro instead of Black or African American. And somehow, because I used the word Negro, because that's part of my history of words, and I did not mean it in any type of derogatory way, but because I've had to change how I speak about the Black community, or the African American. There's no way to win this, because somebody's going to take offense no matter how I try to explain it. So if I say, well, and I've had very many Mexican friends. Well, but you don't hear people saying, well, you called that guy Mexican. Well, but he is Mexican. Or I made a statement, and when I was growing up and we were playing war and so forth, they were the Japs, not Japanese people. They were the Japs. Everybody was against the slant-eyed Japs. Okay. And so I used the word Jap and then caught myself and went, wait, hold on, hang on. That's an old terminology. These are Japanese people, the people of Japan. Okay. Are they Asian? Well, they might not consider themselves Asian. What about folks in Thailand? Do they consider themselves Asian? And we say, well, we speak about the Asian community. Are we being derogatory? Why don't we say the people from China? We call them the Chinese people. But then again, there is this great big group that has to do with, anybody foreign growing up, well, they're not Chinese, and maybe they're Vietnamese, but they're all, and I forgot the word. They're all Orientals. Okay. And that was another word that was used, Orientals. It's like, well, is that a derogatory word? I guess you could say, well, it must be because, who's in the Orient? Well, a Japanese folk was considered the Orient in the old days. And so, when folks of my age now, and especially for me, it's like, You're calling me a racist when I'm trying to defend these folks? Seriously? You're offended because I used a word that's out of your paradigm. Did you listen to the context of what I said? Did you listen to the words and how I spoke them? Did I ever say anything about them effing blah, blah, blahs, whoever the race might be? I find it appalling in a lot of ways that people's minds have been so corrupted by the fact that even if you use a word in a historical way, that people get upset. You use the word Negro instead of black or Black American or African American. And I think to myself, well, wait a minute. In my world, the word Negro was not derogatory. That's what we were called. That's what we were told to call those folk. They weren't the N word anymore, because I'll get in trouble again for using it just as an example. That, oh my God, you use the word Negro instead of Black community or the African American community. Oh, ye of closed-minded, please stop with this mess. You're making an issue where there is no issue. There are things that I watch all types of news feeds. And when I see people literally pooping in their drawers over a statement, and there's a word in the statement they don't like, and so they don't listen to what the person has to say. They refuse to accept how it was said. They saw a word that triggers them into, oh my God, that person must be a racist because he used that word. And I'm like, I don't go around. I've called white people the N-word because they were lazy and useless and, And so it's like, but that was way back in the early 70s. And then things started to change. Now, I've always been on the side when I saw the Black community getting beat up on television, being gassed, beaten, some of them killed. Emmett Till, for example, and how he was beaten to death and found in a river or something with his eyes popped out and ungodly. Supposedly for winking or catcalling or whistling at a white woman. Now, I've grown up down here in the South, and I'm sorry, but number one, see, I'm trying not to be derogatory, but someone's going to go, oh, but you said that word, and just hang on, okay? The Black community way back in the 60s, 50s, and 40s, they knew not to speak out of turn because of Jim Crow, because of all of these things. A Black person was just someone you could beat up, murder, kill, hang in the town square. Hey, lynch this guy. We think he did something wrong, whether he did or not. Ooh, good lynching. All the white people used to have picnics and go to the lynching. Oh, we're gonna lynch some Negro. They didn't use that word, of course. Now, I've been around these places. I've been in these communities in the 60s. And the last thing a Black man would do would be to whistle, look at, or otherwise try to intimidate a white woman. Because they already do. They were going to get castrated, covered in kerosene, set on fire, and hung. Kind of sort of all in the same way. Lots of history down here in the South about that kind of thing. I think it's absolutely appalling, and I throw up just thinking about it. How horrible can these people be? Pretty damn horrible, as it turns out. The history of the old white KKK Southerners is a horrible history. Now, I got to say, it's much better. There are mixed couples now. There are mixed relations. I mean, I even have family members who are of mixed race. So when people talk to me about you're being racist because I use the word Negro or Black Americans or something because of my long history of words, you don't understand. I have family members. You don't get it. I have family members. I'm fine with it. So for someone to get upset with me, I look at it and I go, you people are bat crap cray cray. You're not listening. I'm saying we are all equal in the eyes of Creator, regardless of our skin color. I have said this, I will repeat it over and over and over again. What is racism? I'm a racist against white people. I do not like what they continue to do. These old white men with power who think they know what we want or need. No, it's what they want us to need and want. I mean, but I'm not going into that. But to the point though, if you were to call me a racist, then get your words right. I'm racist against the white people because they just don't understand. They don't understand what the Mexican people understand, how important it is about family and food and friendship and sharing, religion. Same thing with the Chinese people. I've known several very wonderful Chinese people over the years. Thailand, Cambodian. I've worked for these people as a carpenter. They're absolutely fine, wonderful people. I have no issue with them. I have issues with their white neighbors who cause these people in their neighborhood issues. Well, I got a chink that lives down the street. A damn chinks. Does anybody even know what a chink is these days? Just saying. Does anybody know what a wop is? Just saying. Does anybody know what a spick is? Just saying. These were common words everybody used. I mean, the Pollock jokes. Oh my God, growing up, the Pollock jokes were everywhere. Well, then it got to be sensitive. And we weren't allowed to tell Pollock jokes anymore because that made people from Poland seem stupid. I don't know where it got started. I didn't start it. Pollock jokes were around since the 40s and we're being told, hey, a Pollock joke, blah, blah. How many Pollocks does it take to change a light bulb? I mean, you know, that's where the jokes originated. It was a Pollock joke. Pollocks told jokes about themselves. It was great. I say this because in Ohio, where I'm in my earlier years, there was a very large Polish American community, and they had some of the best jokes. It was like, oh my God, they're making jokes about themselves. Well, then somewhere in the mid 70s, it was like the Pollock joke turned into it was how many morons does it take to change the light bulb? Well, then it got to be how many blondes does it take or how many. But in my world, in my history of growing up, society was okay with calling people spicks and wops. And, you know, I mean, they're. So I've been fighting this racism issue since I was in high school in 1967, 68, 69, 70. My 4 years of high school. That's when all the race riots and everything was going on. They went on in Tampa. They went on in other parts of the United States. It was a horrible time to see anyone get beat up with a billy club. And I mean, it hurts. I've been beat up with a billy club and it hurts. And to see these people bloodied and maimed and, you know, you get a hit the way they were hitting these people in the head. They were giving them brain trauma that literally could last a lifetime. And it's like, yeah, well, they're just a bunch of, you know, the N words. And there's no place for them N words, you know. So I guess they take it personal. Call me a racist. When I used to go arm in arm with the black community, and I used to stand up for, I'd be the only white face in a bunch of black folk. And I mean that with, sincerity. I was there because I wasn't afraid. I was there to show, regardless of my skin color, I support these people. I support their cause. I support the fact we should all be equal individuals and beings on this planet. Call me a racist, then call me a racist against white people. Because the Mexican people never tried to conquer the world. Now, the Japanese tried. The Chinese did way back when, like thousands of years way back when. The Native Americans didn't build ships to go conquer Spain, but the Spaniards did. So it's like, well, where is all this racism coming from? This racism is coming from the white people. And damn it, my skin's white. I've tried several times to change. No, I'm kidding. But how do I grow up as a white individual that feels for these other races? And I have done my best. I mean, I still feel that I have more friends of different nationalities than I do in my own white race. But then people are going to condemn me because I use the word Negro? When in my brain, I thought I was being polite. But I used the word Negro instead of Black American, which to me is kind of derogatory to me. And or the African Americans, when I know many people who don't like to be called African Americans. I'm not from Africa. It's been 6 generations since someone came to Africa, or 10 generations. I'm an American. So you say, well, African American. Well, wait a minute, but I'm not from Africa. What if they're from Paraguay? What if they're from South America? And there are black folk in different nations. So it's like, but so anyone with a dark color who isn't obviously like Mexican or Spanish or, automatically they're African American. Now, so my point is like, but they're not from Africa. They are a black race of people. Many black folk come from many different countries or continents, not just Africa. So it's like, ye of closed mindedness. If you use my words to say that I'm racist against the black community because I used the word Negro instead of black or what? Hang on a second. Hang on. You have no idea where I have lived, how I grew up, or whatever. Now, I never called anybody the N-word. I don't like calling them Negroes. And somehow the black community is like, that's the simplest way to say it versus white community versus the Indian community versus the Japanese community or the Chinese community. Black Americans. Okay, maybe. But if you're listening to me, I hope you understand that they created this word nonsense. So if one of us uses something that we grew up with, like as in Negro, they're automatically thinking that I'm being derogatory because I didn't use the current terminology. That's not it. That's not it. I have fought for these other races. I have been in, protests and marches for them and against the white people. You hear in my own little community, I have brought, black families down here to have barbecues here on my property and so forth. And the neighbors got extremely PO'd. Why are you bringing them N-words into our neighborhood? We should have drove you out years ago, Dave. Because I'm an old hippie down here in the South. And I look at things differently. Color doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. It's who you are that matters. Now, if you use your color to sway, like, I'm a Black American, so therefore you must, you know, is it true that Black Americans have been put down for 100 years or more? Absolutely. Is it time for us to rethink what racism really is? And I'm sorry, I grew up a Democrat, which I am no longer a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't know what I am yet. But to the point, though, when I was growing up, to be a Democrat meant you were on the side of the Black community or the Hispanics or the other communities. Now, if you're a Democrat, you're a frickin' libtard. These people have gone nuts. Oh, Mr. Dave, you must be a racist because you used the word Negro. Hang on. Have you listened to a word I said? No, because I used the word Negro instead of Black or African American. I've just already stated my case. But to the point, it's like, hang on a minute. What is wrong with you people? I'm trying to defend races, and you're calling me a racist for using the word Negro. This is how sad our society is. This is how sad it is. I'm dumbfounded. You know, it's like, wait a minute. I'm the old hippie. I'm the one that brings in anybody and everybody. And then folks call me a racist because I use one word, it out of their context. Now, it's a perfect word in my context because of my history of growing up. And if you understood who I am and the type of person that I am and how much I stand up for other races and religions, even though I'm a non-quote religious person, I'm very spiritual. I try to promote spiritualism over a religion. And if you've heard anything that I've spoke about in any of my previous videos, you should understand it's more important about each one of us, our spirituality. I find that the Black community has a lot of spirituality, at least it used to. I love sitting around and singing those songs, the Black spirituals. And I mean that with the utmost of respect. And anybody who wants to twist my words, well, then just go away, please. Because I really love these old Black spirituals. I love the singing and the cadence, and no music is necessary. It's all vocal. It's beautiful. It's absolutely phenomenal. And for somebody to jump on my case because I said that I loved those old types of Black spirituals and the Negro spirituals, which is what they were called when I was growing up. And even in some of the old music books, it says old Negro spiritual. Okay, so I'm reading it from a music book. It says old Negro spiritual. But if I use the term in public, I'm a racist. Or somehow if I say, I made a statement in one of the videos I did, it might have been with Milky Way Weekly. And I said something about, now I've been a member of a chain gang. Let's get this straight. I've been shackled to other people and working on the side of the road. I have worked on a chain gang. Pay attention. Now, when I speak about the songs of the chain gangs it used to be that the railroad workers, they had a certain cadence to way that when they hit the boom, then there was a cadence and a flow of the words and the songs and the melody. I love it. And I've had people get pissed off at me because I said I liked old Negro spirituals. Wait a minute. Y'all just, if there's prejudice, it sounds like it's prejudiced in yourself. When I'm saying that I like something, but then I use the word Negro, oh man, come on. Y'all folks grow up, please. I mean, and I'm not putting any nastiness or trying to be mean to anyone, But hasn't this just gotten just a little bit too deadgum ridiculous? Seriously? Seriously? Hasn't this just gotten a little bit too ridiculous? Where a person can't speak about anything because, oh my God, he used the wrong word there, therefore he must be a racist. He's a nasty blah blah. I dare you find anything that I've said negative about any race. I haven't, and I won't, because I am for all races. You'll hear me bitch and moan about the Catholic Church. I was a Catholic. I had 4 priests pedophile me. Well, sure, I'm a little pissed off at them. You'll hear me talk about religions and how they've cheated us and stolen from us and taken away our spirituality and made us pray to a false god. Okay, but what's that got to do with race? Is that racism? No, it's religionism. I'm a religious idiot or something. Okay, but to call me a racist because I use the word Negro, are you serious? Time for folks to just wake up, please. Just because, now if I had used the word Niger, then folks, I could see where folks could be pissed off. But if I'm using the word as a context, in that when I was growing up, the word Niger with 2 G's, it was commonplace amongst all different WAPs, SPICs, JAPs, you name it, because that was the terminology back then. Has it changed? Yes. Are some of us old folks, do we still have the word Negro or Jap or Chink or something in the back of our heads? Yes. If I use these words, am I being derogatory? Listen to the context with which I speak. But you see, people don't listen anymore. People hear words and they're looking for triggers, something to set them off so they can be pissed. And I'm sorry, but if you think that's who David Knoll is, who Hawkeye Two Feathers is, the amount of people of other nationalities that I have helped in my years, without regard to what their skin color was or whether they could speak proper English or not, then you don't know who I am. And if you can make the remark, you must be a racist, then you must be an idiot because you haven't listened. You know, if you can make the statement that I'm a racist by using the word Negro, then you must be a moron because you didn't listen to the context of with which I use the word. And that I'm always trying to be higher than 100% respectful for all other nationalities, because white people have tried to wipe the rest of us out. And I say the rest of us because of my Native American blood. So if you think after this conversation that Hawkeye here is still a racist, then I guess there's just no hope for your point of view. I respect your point of view. I think it may be a little moronic that you would get, triggered by one particular word without listening to the whole conversation about what I was discussing. And I would say that you in yourself could be a racist. Why? Because you're looking at me as a white person using words when you have no idea of my background or history. So folks say, "Oop, I heard the word. Oop, he used that word. Oop." And it wasn't meant to be derogatory. It never has been. If I call you an effing idiot, then you got a reason to say, "Oh, well, he made that statement." Now, did I say that you are an effing idiot? No, I was using that as an example. But see, people will look at that and say, "Oh, he said I was an effing idiot." Are you listening to the conversation? And I'm finding that out more and more. People are just, when you try to explain simple things, when you try to go in and say, "Look, it's like this and like this and like there are other things involved here," folks simply shut it off. I mean, I go here. You're a racist. I've already made up my mind. And there's nothing you can do to say, and well, wait a minute, let me explain that. Where did you think I was being racist in those remarks? They can't say. It all boils down to, I use the word Negro. Seriously. Seriously. So, at the end of 40 minutes, I'm extending an apology, even though I know that my words were meant in a good context, in a way that was not derogatory. So, if I have offended anyone by my verbiage, I sincerely apologize. Did you hear what I said? I am apologizing for using words that may have triggered you. I have the highest regard for the Black community, for the Native, especially the Native American community, of which I am part, the Mexican community, the Chinese community, the Oriental community, and I apologize if I use a word in the future that may trigger you. Is that my fault? No. Can I be placed in fault at this? Not really. Why? Because I try to be respectful in everything that I say. So if you're finding something, a word or phrase that I use, then maybe you're the racist. Maybe you're the one looking for a way to jump up and down and scream at someone else because of the problems here in America and around the world. And if you have to have somebody to scream at, okay, scream at me. I can take it. I've been cussed out and blessed out by a lot. It's okay. Now, but if you wish to twist my words around and say that because of my verbiage that I am a racist, I would ask you, please, go back, listen to what I said, how I said it, and I ask you, please, to reconsider, was that a racist statement? Or did I use a word that just pisses you off? He used the word Negro, and that pisses me off. I'm sorry, it wasn't meant to be. If I call you a stupid idiot, that's like, okay, if I say your name is Umpty Scrunch and I think you're a moron. That's how some people are. a moron. I'm through with that subject for the moment. And while I'm sitting here for the next minute or so, I'm going to say, when I was going to school and English was taught, and English was taught in a way that this is how you pronounce this word, okay? And everyone learned how to pronounce this word, Athens, 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 Greece. Now, there are people now in this 21st century who now look at the same word and instead of calling it Athens, Greece, it's Athens. Athens? Yeah, there's a place called Athens, Georgia. And then I look at the spelling and go, what? Athens? How did you get Athens out of Athens? I mean, I'm sorry. People are they're saying words now. I mean, for example, we learned, the Andromeda strain. There was movies about Andromeda. And now folks decide that they're going to change how, because of spelling, it's now Andromeda. And so they're talking about Andromeda. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, it's a constellation in the sky. Andromeda. What? You mean Andromeda? Well, that's not how it's pronounced. Well, for 66 years of my life, it was pronounced Andromeda. I mean, I live near Athens, Georgia, and it's not called Athens. What's going on with these folk? And now I've looked at other words, and I'm like, people are looking at words now, and instead of going with what 90% of the rest of the world pronounces a certain word, they make up a new, it's Andromeda, not Andromeda. What? Oh my God. So I can understand confusion because a commonality of language is now just been ripped to shreds. Okay, Uranus, okay, fine. It's a planet out there that starts with Ur. Okay. I mean, it's absolutely like Venus. Some folks are calling it Venus. Wait a minute. Now, these Americans who are calling Venus Venus because they have changed the how it's, well, they look at it, it's Venus, Venus, right? No, it's Venus. No, it's not. It's Venus. An argument over the pronunciation of a word that, as far as I know, has been pronounced Venus for centuries. This new group of folk now have decided that it's okay to take a word that has been pronounced a particular way for centuries, and they decided that they're gonna change the punctuation on the word, and now it's Venus instead of Venus. It's Andromeda instead of Andromeda. And there are words I look at. The Athens thing has really, like, what? Athens, Georgia? I mean, in Georgia, we pronounce things bad or wrong or differently. But for, quote, I mean, there's an Athens, Georgia. I mean, Greece. But they're spelled the same way, but you're going to call one Athens versus, oh my goodness gracious me. That's how crazy this has become. So if I use the word Negro in a sentence, I'm going to get I'm going to get nailed to a damn cross and hung up because I'm a racist because I use that word. And if I use Uranus instead of Uranus, or if I say it's Uranus instead of Uranus, or some other pronunciation, oh my God. Like Jupiter, is Jupiter? Jupiter? Really? These are white people who supposedly speak English. And some of these people I thought were intelligent. Jupiter instead of Jupiter? I mean, what? Saturn. Saturn. What's wrong with Saturn? I mean, it was perfectly fine for a bunch of years, and now all of a sudden, folks have to change it, how it's pronounced. Pronunciation. Oh. But I'm the idiot. I, as a storyteller, as a puppeteer, as an actor and performer for a lot of my life, how you say a word and how you say it, how you pronounce it, how you give the word emphasis makes you a good or a bad actor or whatever. But when people start rearranging how common words are spoken, and those of us, okay, just because I'm old doesn't make it that I'm an idiot, but you're trying, when it's like you folk, I say you, not them folk, okay? Them folk have gone crazy. Well, I call it Athens now, and therefore so should you. I don't know where Athens is. I can't find it on the map. It's Athens, please. It's like Phoenix. Now it's phonics. Because, well, what about, phonics? Now, I'm going to go back. It's going to piss some people off, but I'm going to say this anyway. It started with eubonics. What? Oh, yeah. Think about it. When did all this language change? When were things taken out of, from being Venus to Venus or whatever? Simple words that they've changed the emphasis on the vowels. And some people won't even know what a vowel is or let's not go there. But I noticed that this trend started when they brought eubonics out. Well, this is so black folk can understand. See, now somebody going to get mad about that. But I'm repeating what other people said. Them black folk, they need to be able to understand how to speak better, so we're going to come up with eubonics. That eubonics has gone crazy. Now there are people around the planet. People in Germany speak better English than people in America speak English. because they go with the old pronunciation of the word. So I got folks that have made comments. Let me read. I can't see without. Yeah, Prussians. Someday I might earn that honor. Glad you're here. What? Wonder if the enlightened will be considered the same way. You know, I wonder about that. You have not offended myself or any that I know. As a matter of fact, two light workers were very appreciative that you are so candid. Well, you know, thank you, Miss Pamela, and great day to you, and great day to you too, iStation Z. You know, there are just too many people out there to understand. And for as much as I try to be candid with things and say, you know, things hopefully to be understood, but folks, they just get offended at everything, no matter how you try to explain it, no matter how you know, whatever you do. Too many are offended us by being so politically correct. And you see, and I just wonder if, quote, in that the confusion reigns. They have created chaos in our speech so that even when we try to speak to one another, there's chaos in that. Right. Well, you see, Miss Pamela, it's spelled the same way, but there's some folks in the Southwest United States who swear that the word is now called Athens, not Athens. Just saying. I tell them to ask you, right? But see that, well, that's your pronunciation of it, you know. And it's like, even if you go to this, you know, how does the word sound, and you've got this AI voice trying to explain to it, you know, people don't understand English anymore. They haven't diagrammed sentences or whatever. It's just like, okay. Zed, this happened to me yesterday, mispronouncing Athens. It's not that hard. Only my close friends may call me that. Okay, someday I might earn that. So the elitist last straw is to confound pronunciations. It's, in my opinion, it started with Ebonics. And the Ebonics wasn't for the Black community. The Ebonics was for all communities. It was part, in my opinion, it was part of the change of core curriculum. It went along with the UN's, you know, let's standardize teaching across the planet kind of thing. And so it's like, what? So it's like these people don't know how to look in a dictionary and check, you know, what is that little U over it? It means, you know, instead of A, which is a straight line, it's got, and I can't remember the terms, but it wouldn't matter. But then you've got the little UE sign above a vowel, which means it's a short versus long, A versus ah. Are people taught this anymore? No. And if they have, they've been brainwashed to where it's out of us. Prussian Marxist education system, they are mistaken. They have never been there. Common Core, that's equals fail. And you just look around and look at the folks who have been in Common Core or around Common Core, and these folks, and I got to say, I have deep friends, their children have been through Common Core. They're now, quote, in their, well, late teens, almost 20s now. And these folks are morons. Their idea of what learning is and what things have been so screwed up that a simple line of, you know, the stars, or a simple explanation, they have to twist it up to the point where everybody's wrong now. It's only because of their core value now. Their core education is so chaotic, they can't see the truth, understand the truth, or even give a crap about the truth. It's really sad. And so this is my little 10 cents worth. This is my little rant on the subject. I am not angry at anyone or pissed or any of that kind of stuff. It's just that I just think it's just absolutely ridiculous that things have gotten to this point where, an old timer like me uses a word like the word Negro in a passive, non-aggressive, non-discriminatory way, is chastised because I used an old terminology that now is somehow, and I don't even know if it's politically correct. I just think it's societal correctness. And that's changing. It seems like society's norms are changing almost daily. And it's like I look out there and try to keep up, keep up with the new terminology and stuff, and I look around and go, what has happened here? OMG. People do emojis and people do shorthand and people do, instead of saying, I don't know, it's IKN. IKN. I don't, wait a minute. IDK, sorry. Was thinking about something else, but to the point. So they don't even know how to speak in complete sentences. Now it's shorthand. BTW, by the way. Okay, right. Well, if I'm chatting with somebody and I throw LMAO, laugh my ass off. Okay, fine. LOL, laugh out loud, blah, 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 blah. Well, so they know shorthand, but they can't speak in English. They can't speak in American. I mean, it's like, what? And anything that they see, they're going to, Athens is now Athens. And, Dublin, Georgia is now Dublin. What? Dublin. Well, there's a Dublin in Europe. They don't call it Dublin. I mean, even the Europeans don't misspell. I mean, they come over here and they say the words correctly. I just don't get it. I mean, it astounds me to the point of our society has just absolutely gone bat crap, cray, and moronic. So I got to shut up here. It's 6:34 in my life here. Common Core was designed to separate parent from the student. Hell yeah, and everybody else. 2 + 2 is no longer equals 4. And I still can't get around that one, but okay. Things are a little better in the North PA, but the inner cities up here are just like you expressed. It is. And I'm not trying to be negative about it. I mean, when the last time I went back to Tampa a few years ago, I went through an old section of the city, and it was like I thought I was in the south side of Chicago. What used to be a part of Ybor City, or Ybor, as us whites in Tampa used to call it back in the day, Ybor City, is that there are sections in there I wouldn't go with a police escort. And I knew people, oh my God, I knew black people in those communities back in the day that I went to school with at Tampa Catholic. I would go to their house and have dinner. We would go out on double dates. And oh my gosh. Now I wouldn't even go 5 blocks to where some of my old friends used to live. It has gotten that bad, even for them. And they're part of the black community. And so it's like, wow, our society has definitely changed. Now, for us old timers, is that, we had our issues. We might have called, somebody a spick or a wop or something like that. But a lot of times it was done tongue in cheek, like, hey, you silly wop, And it was a derogatory statement made in fun. But now if you say something like that, do folks even know about that? That's history. That's language. That is an oral history. It's been written down, but the thing is, people know how to speak anymore. They read something and every word they pronounce is like alien to me. Holding space for your part of the country, Zed. Right now, the youth are so fully empowered, they may just save us all. But they have to understand that just because they're youth and just because they think we can have it all. I, as an old hippie in the 70s, thought we had it all too. And look what happened. We were sold a bill of goods, blah, blah, blah. And here we are now with this society and this chaos. I mean, I still, all we are saying is give peace a chance. John Lennon. I've been saying that forever. All we are saying is give peace a chance. Donald Trump goes and sits down with Putin and all these libtards. I'm sorry, I got to use the damn word. These people are bat crap crazy. They're going, oh, but he sits down. Oh, he must be the puppet of the Russians. Are you serious? A man goes over to try to keep peace in the world, and all they can do is beat him up. Whether you like the man or not, he's over there for a peace accord. And they want to rip him to shreds. We don't want peace with the Russians. No, Putin is gearing up on the Ukraine. The Ukraine is part of Russia, y'all. These things that have been going on, our news media and all this other disinformation has got these people so confused they really don't know what's going on. So I applaud Putin and Trump getting together and discussing stuff, and the fact that they don't want to blow the world up and turn it into a nuclear disaster area on planet Earth. The fact that they can sit down and have a conversation without wanting to go into, a fist fight, in my opinion, is just absolutely great. So who are these people who are saying that Trump is somehow the puppet of Putin? When are you all going to just cut that mess out? You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. And I don't want to start a fight with anybody. But at the same time, I want to stand up and go, you people are morons. I mean, it was like, are you serious? You're going to condemn a man for wanting to have peace? And you're a Democrat? In my day, Democrats, we gathered against war. The Democratic Party was the party that didn't want war. It was the Republicans who wanted war. Oh my gosh. Now the Republicans, some of them, are trying to keep peace. And all you hear from the Democrats is they want more war. Are you serious? It's like, I even hate to say that I used to be a Democrat, because I am so appalled at the behavior of these adults. And some of them older than me. And to think that their ideas, well, we got to do that. I thought you were for peace. Isn't that what the Democratic Party used to stand for? Peace. The black community was democratic for a reason, because we were all on the same side back then. RFK, JFK, okay. I mean, Lyndon Johnson was a Southern bigoted asshole. But he was a Democrat. But at the same point, he was actually more Republican, because he enjoyed war. He enjoyed this. He sent our boys to Vietnam. He increased the crisis. He's a Democrat. The Democrats changed during Lyndon Johnson. We went from making peace to making war. Now, when we, and I was one of them that voted in Jimmy Carter, there are many people that say Jimmy Carter was our worst president. Now, if you ask someone who was in the military during those times, they say we had fewer conflicts. Oh, well, there was this and there was that and blah, blah, blah. There's always something going on. But people forget what Jimmy Carter did. Going to the Middle East, going into Egypt and Anwar Sadat and all these folks, and all of the peace accords and the Camp David peace accords. Peace accords. Okay? But Jimmy Carter was an asshole president, is what everybody says. He was the least effective. He tried to get us off of petroleum and into other types of alternative fuels, hydrogen fuels. Why? Because when he started the Department of Energy at that time, it was all about looking for alternative sources of fuel. in the 70s. When Reagan took over, he ripped the solar cells off the top of the White House and said, this is stupid. Now, 50 years later or so, 45 good at least, you look back, what's everybody doing? They're putting solar cells on their houses and buildings and such. Jimmy Carter started that, but Jimmy Carter was an asshole, right? Jimmy Carter was the worst president. He was the peanut man from Georgia. He had his faults. But if you look at the bottom line, Jimmy Carter is still going around at 90 years of age, wanting to build houses and wanting to bring peace to the world. But he was our worst president. Seriously? Seriously? Reagan took over and we started, the contraband, the Contra affair. Ollie North, did you, if you know your history, Oliver North was brought up for charges and stuff. Do you know that he still works for the United States government? After he was charged and all this and blah, 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 blah. Oliver North should never get another dime from the United States. He is currently a United States employee with $100,000+ per year salary. What? I used the wrong word in a corporation and I'm tossed to the curb. These guys are brought up on indictments and blah, blah, blah. And he's still working for the government? People nowadays, look up Oliver North. Look up the Contra deal. Look up what Reagan did and George Bush Sr. and some of these CIA operatives. And you wonder, well, what about the deep state, Dave? That is the deep state. I've been watching the deep state ever since they turned Jimmy Carter into a clown. The president, we were this close to moving to hydrogen. This close. Did you know you can run your car off of hydrogen? Is it that hard? No. What's hydrogen? It's a product of water. And you can burn off hydrogen off of water and use it to run your car. Runs better. There's no emissions. I mean, back in World War II, they had engines that ran off of water. Really? Yeah, because fuel was in short supply. I mean, the diesel engine doesn't run just off of diesel. It runs off of all kinds of stuff, any kind of biofuel, because it uses pressure. Does anybody care? No. Anybody give a crap? No. All this oil business, the pipelines and all this stuff. How much water is in the ocean? Would we ever run out of fuel? No. It's because those who choose to rule us have their own intentions. Well, we can't get off oil. Reagan proved that back in 1980 when he threw Jimmy Carter out. That guy was a butthole, he says. That man didn't know what he was talking about. 45 years later, everybody's looking around doing solar cells and alternative energies, but Jimmy Carter was the worst president ever. Really? Really? That's how far we've come in my lifetime, ladies and gentlemen. And it's really sad because there are people, there were people, there still are people who wish to change that paradigm. Because we can. I mean, Iceland, they changed over to hydrogen. They don't require gasoline anymore because they have lots of hydrogen. Easy to make. So I'm going to shut up with this and invite you all tonight at 10 o'clock with Milky Way Weekly. It is Wednesday, and topic for discussion is going to be cosmic energy some more, and also this, what I would briefly discussed early this morning about what can happen in the blink of an eye. So let me say adios to you, dear sweet folkses. Hashberry loves you, Hawkeye. Absolutely love when my friends read aloud Everything is inverted light right now. Very frustrating. Common sense ain't too common anymore. That's absolutely true. In a way, it's working in our favor. The youth will only listen to each other now instead of talking MSM heads. Do you like Jimmy too? Every president has done something a little on the shyster side, but it's called politics. But the fact that his heart, I mean, after he left the presidency, he goes around and builds, homes for homeless folk. Oh my God. And they want to condemn the man. I'm like, okay. So we'll be there. Thank you, Mr. No. Bush Sr. is a vile individual. Absolutely. iStation Z, great coffee cup. See you at 10. All right. Love to y'all. I got to go do my outside chores now. I'll see you at 10 o'clock. Love to y'all. Big hugs, hugs, hugs. And if you think somebody's being derogatory, I ask you to just please stop a second, reconsider what was said, and then love your neighbor, be nice, send out hugs, and a smile is worth $1,000,000. Bye, y'all.